Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. So, have you ever looked at a massive, incredibly diverse democracy and wondered, how does this whole thing actually hold together? Today, we're setting out to unpack the complex, sometimes invisible sociological forces that threaten the unity of these massive nations. By looking specifically at the historical and sociological landscape of India, we're going to explore the really powerful dynamics of communalism and regionalization. It's a fascinating journey into what pulls a society together, and honestly, more critically, what forces pull it apart.
Okay, let's dive into this. Think about it for a second. How does an incredibly diverse group of people, separated by language, geography, and religion, actually manage to maintain a feeling of oneness? And when that oneness eventually shatters, what exactly is the hammer that breaks it? Unpacking that delicate tension between unity and fragmentation is exactly what we're doing today.
Here's our quick roadmap. We're starting off by defining national integration, then jumping into the concept of communalism, looking at British divide and rule, weighing competing views, examining the push for regionalization, and wrapping up with the ultimate threats to national unity. Let's get right to it.
Section 1. Defining national integration, the baseline of oneness.
Before we can thoroughly examine what tears a nation apart, we really need to establish a baseline. We have to understand what actually holds a nation together in the first place, right? Sociologically speaking, a nation isn't just a geographical entity with lines drawn on a map. It's fundamentally a body of people who share a deep sentiment of belongingness. We have to define this baseline concept of integration first so we can really understand the deviations from it later on.
So the crucial point is that true national integration is not a forced rule. You can't just mandate it. It's this positive belief, a shared feeling of unity within diversity that simply cannot be imposed by an authority or a government. It relies heavily on shared ideas, shared values, and deep emotional bonds among citizens. It's basically a sense of supreme national identity that thrives on economic and political interdependence. When that shared emotional bond starts to weaken, well, that's exactly where fragmentation begins. Section 2. The concept of communalism identity over nation. Now we're pivoting to the very first major threat to that delicate national integration. And to do this properly, we need to set up a critical distinction between simply having a community and falling into communalism. Communalism is defined as placing your own community above all others, and crucially, even above the nation itself. While a community implies this really positive fellowship of relations, shared culture, common character, communalism is a heightened negative expression of those exact same feelings. It implies an exclusive loyalty to your own group that often morphs into hostility, intercommunal rivalries, and deep social tension.
Let's move to and see how this builds in real life. How does it actually happen? Well, sociologist Prabha Dixit outlines a pretty clear step-by-step theory. It definitely doesn't happen overnight. Step 1 begins quite simply with just an awareness of religio-cultural differences, things like lifestyle, clothing, or language. But in Step 2, these simple differences are essentially weaponized when a community deliberately initiates political demands solely on those differences. Finally, Step 3 is the escalation. This is where that basic communal awareness hardens into a hostile political doctrine, designed specifically to achieve certain ends at the expense of others.
Section 3. British divide and rule, the roots of division.
To understand how communalism became so deeply entrenched in India, we have to look backwards at the historical genesis of this division. Under colonial rule, the British utilized a policy of divide et impera, divide and rule. Following the remarkable Hindu-Muslim unity that was seen during the 1857 Sepoy Mutiny, the colonial rulers were genuinely alarmed. To maintain their control, they systematically engineered division. In 1905, they partitioned Bengal along religious lines. By 1909, the Morley Minto Act introduced separate electorates for Muslims. And later, in 1932, the Communal Award further appeased and divided various communities. These administrative actions deliberately and methodically fractured the society's overarching national identity.
Section 4. Competing views on communalism, the academic debate. And this brilliantly illustrates a fascinating historiographical debate. Academics are sharply divided on whether communalism is an ancient hatred or a purely modern phenomenon. On one side, we have the colonialist viewpoint, which is championed by thinkers like Hugh McPherson. He argues that communalism is an ancient, irredeemable animosity dating back centuries, suggesting these divisions were basically always there. On the flip side, the nationalist viewpoint, championed by Bipin Chandra, argues the exact opposite. Chandra asserts that communalism is a strictly modern, unscientific phenomenon generated purely as a product of colonial divide and rule politics. For nationalists, the argument is that communalism only emerged because popular politics simply didn't exist before the British arrived.
Now, regardless of which viewpoint you lean toward,
Our sources detail several specific factors that continue to fan the flames of this ideology. For instance, British historian James Mill famously distorted Indian history by dividing it into a prosperous ancient Hindu period and a decaying medieval Muslim period. This, paired with Orientalist glorifications of the ancient past, really alienated communities. Add to that the modern spread of media rumors, distorted news, and political parties actively engaging in vote bank politics and appeasement, and you've got a perfect storm for ongoing communal tension.
Section 5. The push for regionalization. Territory over nation.
We're now going to shift our focus to the second major threat to national unity. And this one fragments a nation not based on religion, but based on geography. Regionalism is defined as an intense feeling of pride and loyalty associated directly with a specific region, rather than the nation as a whole. It heavily favors what's called the sum of the soil theory. This basically means inhabitants feel a sense of unity based on their local language, culture, and economic interests, which very often leads to narrow personal interests and demands for regional autonomy. Just like communalism, it takes that overarching national loyalty and replaces it with a localized, sometimes negative feeling toward people from other regions. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we can map out the modern political outcomes of this regionalism. On the one hand, you have the successful results of regional movements. Back in November 2000, Chhattisgarh, Uttaranchal, and Jharkhand were created as entirely new states based on strong regional loyalty. On the other hand, we see the ongoing territorial demands, noted in our sources, movements fighting for the creation of places like Telangana, Bodoland, and Gorkhaland. It's this constant, ongoing push and pull between regional autonomy and national cohesion.
Section 6. Threats to national unity. The tragic cost.
Now we have to bring both of these forces, communalism and regionalization, together to really explain their ultimate shared consequence on the fabric of society. When citizens completely forget their shared national identity and are consumed by exclusive loyalties, the sociological results are frankly devastating. The sources objectively list these severe historical manifestations of fragmentation: the violent 1947 partition of India, the 1984 anti-Sikh riots, the 1989 ethnic cleansing of Kashmiri Pundits, and the 1992 Babri Masjid demolition. These aren't just dates in a textbook, you know? They are profound, tragic examples of exactly what happens when a society loses its emotional bond of integration and turns inward on itself.
Which leaves us with a really profound final thought to ponder. How can a massive, highly diverse society maintain its delicate balance of national integration without erasing the beautiful, unique identities of its local people? It's the ultimate tightrope walk for any modern democracy, and it requires a constant, conscious effort from every single citizen to prioritize oneness over division. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the forces that shape our world.
Thanks for watching. For daily APPSC Group 2 study material and updates, please subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon.